Greetings, brothers and sisters. So this is a necessary follow-up. I mean, I guess they all would be necessary, I hope. But this is a follow-up to my video about the future of my channel. Again, this is going to be on both channels, so it'll have the same title. There's no need to watch it twice. I mean, But anyways, I want to start with a farming story because I was out bush hogging. Bush hog is like a lawnmower on steroids. There's these aggressive blades, large blades on a bush hog. It's an attachment that goes on a tractor, and you can, cut brush with it. Things that would wreck your lawnmower, you can cut with the bush hog, right? So we fenced our pasture, and I made a path around the pasture, and part of it has Dusty 12 on it, and we walk on it pretty much every day, even in the winter. And around the area by the path, there's a lot of natural growth, old like goldenrod and things like this. Pretty tall plants, some of them 4 feet high, and there's lots of animal life in them, rats and rabbits and things like this. And we try to leave a natural habitat there as much as we can, but little brush trees start growing up, and there's some things that are problematic. But because of our dogs who often run off the trail that I've made and go into the bush area, and that there's coyotes about, especially in the near future, when the mating season happens for coyotes, they get way more aggressive and they enter into farmland more. You can see them more prolifically, right? We often see them on the outskirts of our property or our neighbor's property, out in the fields. One year, one came into our yard a couple of times. We had to chase it out. It killed one of our chickens, or two of them, and so it was like a thing. So we don't want our dogs being, taken away by coyotes. I don't know if you hear my dogs barking. So I decided to cut down all the brush, and plus we have these wildflowers around the path, so it's like walking through a flower garden. And so I wanted to cut those down so the seeds enter into the ground, and I'm going to, in some places, rototill it and add more seeds. So it was something I was planning to do in November, but didn't get around to it just for a variety of reasons. And so I started cutting the brush, and there were these little rats that were running out from everywhere. Like there must have been 20 or 30 of them. And I started thinking, if I had a pet owl or something, a falcon, or I don't know, I guess falcons are more aerial hunters. And so I was thinking if I had some sort of, bird like that, I could have it on my shoulder or whatever somewhere on the tractor, and it could just be gobbling up these rats, right? And so some time went by, and there's more and more rats, and as I cut more and more of the bush, they'd run into the part I hadn't cut, and so they're running back out. I mean, I must have seen some of the same ones over and over again. And so I'm doing it for about, 30 minutes or so. And, it's getting kind of loud. I forgot to bring in my headphones or whatever. And so I look up, there's a kestrel, right? And kestrels, they have ultraviolet vision, where they can see the sunlight hitting off of the mouse urine. Like there's I guess mice urinate a lot, and they can follow the mice urine and catch the mice. They just sort of hover up in the sky, right? And this one flies by me a couple of times. Sometimes when I'm cutting in the summer, I'll get swallows because I'm kicking up all these flying insects, which swallows eat. It was the first time I had a bird of prey that came this close. And it sat on one of the fence posts, and it was going around. I'm like, oh man, I think it's going to whack a rat, I'm getting pretty psyched about it. And then I turn around, and it's flying down kind of low to the ground. I'm heading towards it. And I get within 10 feet, and it picks up a big-ass rat, and it flies off. And I was like psyched. I mean, I saw, these kestrels are really neat-looking birds. They have this cool orange, underbelly. I mean, they're really neat-looking birds. And my wife and I had just seen one fairly close by the driveway, maybe about a year or, half a year ago or something, 6 months ago. But anyways, there's one big-ass rabbit in there, really big rabbit. And our fruit trees, something's been eating the bark of the fruit trees, and Well, now we have to deal with that, and it's a whole thing. We have rabbits in there, and they haven't eaten the fruit trees in past years, but this one seems to be into it, so that sucks. It could be the deer, but it's on the bottom of the tree. It's more likely a rabbit. So what I want to say here is that I got a lot of messages, a lot of ideas, and some things to do with my migraine headaches, which I want to address as well. But the one thing I want to start off with is, like, sometimes I have to be sort of pushed into doing something, right? I get in a groove, and I'm a routine oriented person. I enjoy making the videos. Like, it's a routine I'm in, and I'm enjoying it, as much as, it's a job or whatever, but I, do enjoy it. And like I said, it's part of my routine. That's one of the reasons I try to keep with it, doing on a daily basis. Because, sometimes if you stop doing something for a while, it gets hard to come back in, or, you get out of the rhythm of it. But it's been on my mind for some time now that I need to work towards bringing in more people. Since YouTube is working against that, and society is working against that. Back in when I first started this channel, 2007, and then when it became more popular in 2015, it wasn't a big deal. There wasn't any, talk about fake news, and nobody was worried about it interfering with elections, the truth community and all these things. But now there's a war on truthers, which I addressed today in my video on my Pockets of the Future channel. Brian Stelsa was invited to the World Economic Forum, and they were talking about how they can get rid of disinformation and conspiracy theorists on the internet. And they had a seminar before his talking about disrupting the distrust, how they can disrupt the distrust, which I'll find and cover 2 days from now. But going back to my central point here, when I was a younger person, I was very restless. So I had trouble keeping the same job for a long period of time, or being in routine, or doing whatever. I would, relationships, things like this. Nothing lasts more than a year or so. And I bounced around, right? I had different groups of friends, different things I would do. I wasn't, very consistent with anything I did. And there was a restlessness that no longer is really there. Like, I don't feel restless like that. I used to love to travel. I moved a lot, right? And then, I'm older and tireder now, and the restlessness has been cleaned out, I think, because of the Sahaj Marg meditation that I do. And I'm much more of a routine-oriented person. And I like to just, do the things I do normally. I eat the same foods, have some sort of regimen. And it makes it a lot easier to conduct, whatever I'm doing, to maximize my efficiency as a person, and have these, set schedules where I can accomplish things, chip away at them, whether it be farm work or the videos or whatever I'm doing. And so it's harder for me to break the routine, and that's been comfortable. Whenever my channel has had a big influx of new people, it's kind of a jolt to my system, right? When I used to have videos that would go more, into the mainstream type of situation, videos that in the past got millions of views and things like this. And I had people from all kinds of different belief systems coming here. It was chaotic, and, I didn't love it, right? And I don't base my success or failure on the numbers, and getting more people doesn't make me feel any better about myself. It's not like a goal of mine to get more and more people, more and more subscribers. It's not like a badge of honor, right? Like, it's a good thing, it's it's something, it's an accomplishment, but it's not something that I'm really all that into. Like, I don't care about that much. And there are certain things I could do. I could be more personable. I could make this more of a community. I could be more interactive with people. All these things that, I don't really like to do. And I'm just not really into it. But the idea has come to me over and over again that I need to do that, right? I've already addressed the reasons why I think that is. But I haven't, made the time to do that. And now YouTube is, I don't know what's going on with YouTube and the ad revenue. I don't know other people who are going through this, but I've heard that there's issues with it. And so it is something that is probably pushing me to do something different, right? And that's what I'm, it's not that I'm going to stop making videos, and I don't think it's telling me to change platforms, like, in terms of, the idea that's been here for a while is I need to make an effort to bring in more people. something that, for whatever reason, the divine forces want this thing to happen. And if I have to be pushed to do it, then I'll be pushed, right? Sometimes I need external force to make me, get on something that I'm supposed to be doing, and I just haven't got around to doing it. And so that's the main gist of what I was saying, right? That, I'm looking at what's happening. There's a reason for it, and the reason isn't change the way I do my business here and offer some sort of paid services or whatever else it is, right? The only thing that I think that the divine forces that God would want in this case is that the message I have here goes out to more and more people. And I've been aware of this for some time. I've talked about it in the past, but I just, and it just hasn't happened on its own, so I have to do something, right? Like it's something that has to come from me. There has to be some effort. Also, I think to some extent I'm resisting it because it's nice to be under the radar, like I said. I don't have any desire to be more famous than I am, like obviously. And so, I don't consider myself famous either. I do something where, people would probably not recognize me on the street and whatever, and it's not that many people that watch my YouTube channel. But even like I said, doubling it or tripling it or quadrupling the amount of views would, create a sustainability about the channel, and I could do other things, right? I mean, if I get out of this or I don't, I stop making as many videos, the other option would be farming. My wife and I are talking about this. There's going to be a need for food in the future, and we have the ability to grow food. And so it's something that at some point I'll transition more back to the original aspect of this channel when we were farming, and, and make the channel more about that and less about, whatever, the stuff that I don't really care about, politics and celebrity culture. I mean, we'll see how it all progresses. But those are like my two options. And so right now it's expand the channel or see how that goes. And then, as time goes on, my wife and I will look into do more farming thing. We're going to probably end up making tinctures at some point, do other things like that. And we're already doing these things for ourselves. So it's just a matter of that we want to, sell those things or do something like that as a source of revenue. And also, they would be, things that would be done by, the energy and the whatever that we're making ourselves is better than you would get in most sort of corporate and these other sort of new age type of, big new age pharma type of stuff where you get these types of, herbal supplements or whatever it is, right? Tinctures or whatever else that we might decide to do in the future. And so those are the possibilities. The farming isn't going to happen soon. I mean, we're already doing that to some extent, but we'll continuously do that. At some point, we'll be making, we'll be growing more food, and mostly we'll sell it probably locally, but there might be some sort of connection, and it'll probably change the way I use my time in terms of making videos. I'll probably make maybe a few a week or something like that. It'll be a little bit different, right? Maybe more in the winter and less in the summer, but we'll see how it all plays out and it moves forward. But I really wasn't clear about that point until I heard some of the comments and I saw what people were suggesting, that, I really wasn't, I didn't clearly state it and I wasn't aware of it myself, that the way I was looking at it was that my ad revenue has dropped and that it was to me telling me I need to finally get around to doing the things I've been talking about, my wife and I have been talking about. I've mentioned them here from time to time in terms of expanding the viewership of this channel. And so that's the channel part. Just had dinner and I realized my video that I made about the World Economic Forum, Fetterman, and Brian Stelter was demonetized pending a review. So I went back and edited out a certain word that ends in Chrome. I was just making jokes about it. I don't know if that word triggered the bots. I don't know. It's a whole thing over there. Whole thing over there at YouTube, or over here at YouTube. But anyways, so that video might not be out by the time I post this, depending on how everything works out. The next thing I want to talk about is my health and migraines. I got quite a number of suggestions from people, and I don't discourage people from making suggestions because there are things that people have sent me that have been very helpful. Some of those things, I use even now, or things I found out through members of the YouTube channel. One person sent me, an idea of doing acupressure on point 4 of the lower intestine in the hand and point 3 of the liver 3, which I'm very familiar with liver 3 because everybody who, when I worked as a patient or I was a patient for the acupuncture test, they kept on laying into my point 3 to see if it was tender. By the end of the day, it was really tender. And so it's a point I'm familiar with. I'm a liver type. So the person suggested that the migraines come from, liver, whatever stuff's going on, which I would tend to, agree with, at least in that model. I just don't believe in one model of medicine. And I do know that my migraines are going to go down that I'm not having chocolate. I used to have a lot of post chocolate, post caffeine migraines. And I was aware of it, and it was a price I was willing to pay because I like drinking, the caffeine and eating the chocolate. But I have a bag full of the firecracker chocolate in my closet that I haven't touched, and um, I haven't really craved any of these things. I'm happy not to have them. I feel better about my health, and it was just time for me to give it up, the caffeine. But other than that, on a physical level, whenever I'm stressed out about something, I was stressed out about our cows. And, when I realized it was only a couple days away, I started to immediately get tension in my jaw, which often leads to a migraine. And then, whatever's happening with my gut. Also, I think one of the supplements I'm taking, something new I'm taking, is upsetting my stomach as well. So that, I think, is the reason for the migraines. But I wanted to say something philosophically about this because people have said you have a lot of health issues, and I really don't. Like, I don't have severe health issues. I'm almost, 60. I'm 58 years old. And I assume, based on, just my siblings and my parents, that I look younger than that to people. Most people in my family look at least 10 years younger than they are. And my grandparents all lived into their 90s, except for one. And I talked about him. He was in 2 world wars, and he was a firefighter before they had oxygen masks, and he smoked like a chimney, and he died of lung cancer. But my family has longevity and physical health. My both parents lived into their 90s. I've had lingering things, but I've never had anything major. I never had cancer. I haven't had any real heart issue that made me go to the hospital or something. I haven't had anything major go wrong with my system. COVID was COVID. That was sucky, and that did whatever it did. But I haven't had poor health like that where I had to go to the hospital. I had one elective surgery, and then I had the surgery. My mom, had my abnoids when I was a kid. And that's the only times I've had surgery. I had a concussion I went to the hospital for when I fell off a zip line when I was a kid, and that's about it. And I sprained my ankle when I was playing basketball, one of my ligaments, and I had to be in a cast for, I don't know, like 6 weeks. But other than that, I've had, pretty much nothing major, nothing severe in terms of my health. No major illnesses, nothing, that was put me at death's door. I had allergies when I was a kid. My mom was very hypochondriacal about it. But that's about it. I got sick a lot before I went to gatherings, which I attribute to the cleaning process because it's known in the Sahaj Marg system. When you went to a gathering, oftentimes you would get sick before. The master of the system got sick all the time before the gatherings, and it was a way for cleaning to happen. And you would feel better if you had some sort of physical ailment or some stressor or something that was unpleasant before the gathering, and it would help pull things out that needed to be cleaned, and you would feel lighter and better after the gathering took place. And so my trips to India, I got sick, and then some of these other gathering things, but I never really got all that sick. Like, I haven't been really, really sick. I got sick that time in India because I was in India, where I thought I had tuberculosis, but it turned out I didn't. I've told that story before in my journey series multiple times. And my son got dengue there, which is really, that was really severe, life threatening. But in terms of heart problems or, like diagnosed heart problems where I'm on heart medication, things like that, or cancer or something, major surgeries, nothing like that, right? I haven't had anything really severe. But I've had the lingering migraines, and I've often felt, and it's part of the spiritual philosophy, that, some scars and these things, the impressions have to be burned off somehow. And so I've learned to deal with the migraines. I first started getting migraines when I fell off the zip line and I was in the hospital. I woke up in the hospital. I'd been there for like 12 hours. I was unconscious. And, I had a concussion. And maybe a month later, I couldn't see properly. There was flashes of light in my eyes, and I felt really weird. And I didn't know what it was. And I just was like, just felt like, not great. And I went to the school nurse, and my mom, I think, she had worked for a while, but I don't think she was working then. She came to pick me up. I remember I was sitting there by the front doors, just laying on the ground, propped up against the doors, waiting for my mom to pick me up. I was just, in severe pain and just, I didn't know what had happened. And eventually I found out it was a migraine. So I was 14 when that happened, and I've had them ever since. And I know that there are things in my diet and other things that have contributed to them, certainly stress, and sometimes they just happen. And I'd like to get rid of them, but not at the cost of something worse, right? If I have to experience something, it might as well be that. I've got used to it, and they're not that bad anymore. I usually can make a video. I can work, and, the ones that go on for a couple of days, then it gets a little bit sucky. But the Sahaj Marg philosophy, my spiritual, the spiritual practice I do, you have to experience some pain, some discomfort. That's what life's about. And you don't know happiness if you have never experienced unhappiness. You don't know, or sadness. You don't know pleasure, if you have never experienced pain, right? And pleasure comes with pain, and happiness comes with sadness. They're two sides of the same coin. And so I've, accepted that, right? That there's going to be some things. Master Charji, the third master system, had migraines, and his master, Babaji, tried to do everything to alleviate the problem. He brought in all kinds of, specialized, like, energetic healers and things like this. And he did spiritual work. And even with that, at some point he said, it's in God's hands. I can't do anything about it. And so there must be a reason for it. And, it's God's will. I don't look at life as something where there's, some sort of pain-free utopian type of situation, right? That everything is pleasurable, everything is enjoyable, there's no sadness, there's no death. I mean, that's, those things are all part of life, right? There's always going to be loss, there's always going to be changes, there's always going to be things that you don't want to happen that happen anyway. And your ability to deal with those things is what makes this, interesting story. I've talked about movies. If you took out the conflict in movies, you took out the obstacles, the difficulties in movies, they'd be very boring, right? In TV shows, like any story, it's the obstacles and the villains and the things that you have to master and overcome that make the story compelling and interesting and even inspirational. And that's for everybody. We need those things in our life. They're part of the human experience. I've started to take, I've been taking cold baths, and those actually help with the migraines, with the headaches. I've been doing this now, I don't know, 4 or 5 months. I don't know. And I actually enjoy the cold water. In the beginning, I was like, I'm not going to do that. And I didn't like the idea. And when I realized it was something that could help me, and I did it a few times, I was kind of into it. And, I swam in the ocean when it's cold, and I always find it invigorating. And I've done some, cold water type of swimming and things like that. When I started taking the cold baths, I realized that once I get in, and especially when I get my head under the water, my head, is always hot. Like I'm always, I produce a lot of heat with my head or whatever it is. And I run hot mostly. And I realized I really like the way the cold water feels. Like once I'm in, I get past the initial sort of shock. And, sometimes I'm like, I don't even want to get out, right? I really enjoy it. And, it's something where I never would have thought that was the case. But it's a different kind of sensation. Warm water is very relaxing, and I like warm water as well, but hot water. But cold water has its own special, unique feeling, and it really brings you to life. It's really, and again, I'm not recommending anything here. I'm just saying it's something I enjoy, and it's just a matter of perception, right? People think cold water is bad or cold is unpleasant, but oftentimes when I'm outside during the cold weather, I really enjoy it, right? I have, especially if I have enough warm clothing, but it makes you feel alive when you're cold, right? And especially when you're not, the hypothermia is one thing, when it becomes dangerous, but a little bit of we're just so used to, the optimal temperature in our houses and our cars, and we don't really people don't experience heat and severe cold, and I think it tests a human being. It keeps you strong, and we're not supposed to have constant comfort, right? We're supposed to have some discomfort in our lives. It's natural for a human being to want to avoid pain and move towards pleasure, a desire to have pleasure, and uh, you know uh, some inner compulsion to push away pain, right? I mean, pain is there for a reason. Like, you do things that are painful, you burn your hand, you learn not to do that, right? You do things that end up causing you pain, and you learn not to do those things. But you learn to avoid pain. It's part of conditioning, but there's also, and I'm not saying sleep on a bed of nails or, these types of things. That's taking it to an extreme, but there is pain, there is suffering, there is miseries that we have to endure, and sometimes you just have to, be grateful that it's not something worse, right? Because oftentimes, if you get rid of one thing, then something else happens. You know, like one thing that's causing you stress and pain, you resolve that, and then another thing in your life goes and does that for you. I don't know how many migraines I got last year, maybe one every couple of weeks average. I don't know. Some of them were very mild, and most of them I made videos. I don't think there was any time I couldn't make a video. I mean, even um, the other day, I had the migraine for 3 days, and I made videos. I made content every day. And like I said, I have this, couple of days where it feels great, especially the first day afterwards. My serotonin level is increased. There's somebody gave me some supplement that's supposed to help boost the natural serotonin. So I look forward to maybe taking that and seeing how that works. The turmeric pills were great. My wife and I feel like they both. She had a little headache, and she felt like it worked for her. And they're subtle. They're less, you know, without any sort of side effects, whatever. I don't know what's exactly about it. I've already taken turmeric regularly, as it's an anti-inflammatory, um, and other things. But I haven't seen a doctor. I mean, an eye doctor when I was having the eye issues, and then every once in a while I need a new prescription for my glasses. But other than that, I haven't seen a regular doctor in years. And I don't go to the doctor. Like, I very seldom go to the doctor. I usually, whatever I have in terms of being sick and things like this is mild enough, and I usually can function. I haven't had the flu in years. I don't remember the last time I had the flu. I think was in like college or something like this, like 30 years ago. And so just the COVID stuff and the post-COVID issues have, definitely been um, a time where I'm focused a lot more on my health than I usually am. Most of the time, I just try to sleep it off, and after a couple of days, it gets better. Anyways, I was glad to see all the supportive comments about the channel. There's people left donations, which was generous. Again, I wasn't. I mean, that's for now, it's not a. I'll definitely do the membership at some point, and I want to make the ad. Those are the first couple of things. But I'm a long way off from doing like a donation based system. And as long as YouTube ads are paying me something, or paying me enough that it's reasonable. It always sucks when you get less money for the same work, especially when your work has gotten better. So that part sucks. But I'll talk more about that as time unfolds and we see how it progresses over the months, and what YouTube is doing, and it'll be more clear after a couple of months, and we'll see if it switches back or if there's a continuation of them paying less money for or running less ads or doing whatever they're doing on their end. And so there was, let me see, let me look at it here. In terms of the uh, the two videos, it got the video future of my YouTube channel and my Pockets of the Future channel got 2,863 views, and then the one on my other channel got 289, 2,849. So slightly more. Basically, it was around 6,000 views. So a few of the comments were crappy, like just, you know, uh, hostile comments, but the majority were supportive. And I think for the most part, that means that there's about 6,000 or so people who care about this channel and want to see content from me in the future. Some people are, they could take it or leave it. They kind of into it or whatever. They come and go. But that's a good number. And like I said, if I could make that number, I don't know, 20,000 or something like that, it would help not just financially, but in lots of other ways, and just get the message out. And it'd also be a more stable type of. There would always be new people coming from that sort of a base, as new people would find the channel for people who are into it, and then it would keep on expanding, and whatever. And so I have to make that my goal. I have to concentrate on it and get rid of any resistance that I have towards it, and just accept that it's necessary for the future. Anyways, only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely reporting from the Apocalypse and the Ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.